So it's 3:39. I'm going to call the meeting of the Prudential Committee to order. First up on the agenda is visitors and staff to be heard, and I want to thank you all for coming to the meeting and for hosting the meeting. We really appreciate it. And trying to find a way to get out there and have more people involved and come to the meetings, so I appreciate your attendance. Does anyone have anything to say, or no? Okay. So we'll move straight on to the principal's reports. Which, you know what, I bet that Michael Smith was supposed to cover for us. Do you want to summarize?
Okay, so we will start with Summit Street School. They're going to be having their International Potluck Dinner January 29th, beginning at 5:30, and it's their most well-attended event. They just celebrated Martin Luther King's life and accomplishments last Tuesday. They are looking over their climate survey results as a staff and PTO members and meeting about that. The Natural Playground Committee continues to work and fundraise. They're working on the reading garden, landscaping, and game table area. Let's see. A group of first grade students who exceed the standards are participating in a 6-week robotic problem-solving exploration. And there is a meeting tomorrow, the Natural Playground meeting at 6:30 in the Learning Center. Tuesday, January 22nd, Mr. Neal's first grade class is going to share their learning at an assembly at 8:15 in the gym. Tuesday the 29th is the potluck dinner at 5:30 in the gym. Hiawatha, they just are in the process of planning their annual Winterfest, where they'll have snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, sledding, winter arts and crafts, and it's usually their best attended event. This is going to be happening in the next few weeks. They just had their hand-to-hand sale right before the holidays, where the children raised about $300 and bought non-perishable food items from Hannaford's, and the food was donated to the Heavenly Pantry food shelf. The PTO has raised several $100s through a silent auction, which will be used to support their artist-in-residence projects. The staff, students, and families have just said goodbye to 7 UVM interns and student teachers who spent the fall semester with them. And they are working on planning a February parent forum to discuss the results of their climate survey. They've recently started their PTO email system to communicate the school events and happenings. Thomas Fleming School, their student council just sponsored their Random Acts of Kindness Week, where there was positive acts, kind words, and notes of encouragement. 4 Fleming student writers' poetry was chosen to be performed by professional actors at the Flynn Theater Winter Tales. That was in mid-December. All of these students came from the Mountaineer team classrooms of Jeff Gilmette and Amy Downing. 10 Fleming students qualified for the school GOB finals, which were last Wednesday. The school climate surveys are being discussed there as well with faculty and staff. The PTO is going to host a special meeting on Wednesday, the 16th, to report out and discuss the results. That's at 8 a.m. They're working on some math professional training with Sandy Stanhope. And finally, their Fleming Winter Instrumental Concert will be Wednesday, January 30th at 7. So that's it. Okay.
All right, next up is communications. I have a letter that I've been asked to read from a parent from Fleming. Dear school board members, I am writing to inform you of the excellent professionalism I recently experienced with some of your staff at Thomas Fleming School. It isn't too often that we praise those who deserve to be recognized. My family and I recently moved back to Vermont from North Carolina. My experience with the Essex school system has been remarkable so far. Everyone has been very welcoming, and I can tell that they genuinely care about my son and our family. My son is 10 years old and has had a rough time adjusting to our 900-mile move, as I would expect from any child his age. He needs a lot of guidance and supervision with schoolwork to help keep him on task and up to speed with his classmates. I want to commend the staff at Thomas Fleming, whom have helped us with creating an individualized education plan that is specifically molded around his needs. Nate McHugh, Jeff Gilmette, Amy Downing, Jillian Boudreau, and Dan Ryan are just a few of the excellent advocates who have been involved in this process. While living in North Carolina, I felt like I was my child's only advocate. I literally fought with the school system from kindergarten through 3rd grade to facilitate an IEP. It wasn't until the 3rd grade that they decided to look into creating an IEP for him. The only reason why they decided to look into it was because the school system decided to have him repeat the 3rd grade. Even then, I could not get an IEP for him because they wanted documentation of his diagnosis. I then had to spend over $1,000 to see a psychologist, then a psychiatrist, even though his primary doctor, pediatrician, had already documented his diagnosis. It was a very disheartening struggle for my son and our family. When I enrolled my son over the summer for this school year, I had everything ready by compiling his psychological evaluation, his former North Carolina Individualized Education Plan, report cards, etc. I wanted to make sure he received the education he deserved and needed. At Thomas Fleming, they made it so easy for me. I didn't have to fight. I didn't have to argue. In fact, they took those papers and my hand and were all over it. They have embraced my input and have made excellent suggestions to lift our spirits. I also want to note that they have gone above and beyond at brainstorming valuable tools, one-on-one support specifically for his needs. Within 2 to 3 months, his IEP was in place at Fleming and he was receiving educational support. I would have never received this kind of support from the North Carolina school system. As you can see, I feel very honored to have so many people who are advocating for my son. They have made us feel very much part of the Thomas Fleming family. On that note alone, I want to recognize them. I truly feel blessed and relieved as a parent to receive this love and support and to be part of this amazing community. I am eternally grateful that you have employed such outstanding people. From the deepest part of my heart, thank you. Christine Slatter. That's my letter. That's why I live up here in freezing cold land. As I've said 100 times. So I agree. All right, so now we're going to go on to Vermont School Improvement Report. Lori?
So we're going to backtrack just a little bit because
sorry.
I didn't.
You were part of the principal.
Part of the ADL principals report.
Sorry.
Rather than give you the sort of typical format that you are hearing, we wanted to be able to share with you all the wonderful things that are happening with technology here at ADL, and evidenced by your support for pushing forward our minis in 7th and 8th grade, and hopefully continuing that to 6th grade for next year. But before we jump into that, there are a couple of dates coming up. This coming Thursday, the 17th, is our Empty Bowls night that starts at 5:30 p.m. and we hope that everyone will attend. It's a wonderful evening, and it's our 7th graders and our Alpha team that puts that on. So they're visually preparing. That night is quickly approaching. I can't think of any other dates that are up between now and the next board meeting. I think that's the big one that we wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of. So we have some students here that are going to highlight for you some of the work that they've been doing with technology. They're from the Discovery team, and Mrs. Legg might be sharing a little bit as well, but I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Legg and the students to just show you some of the many things that are taking place here at ADL.
I'm just trying to turn this on. Did it turn on?
I did.
So the first thing we're going to show you guys is Matt Emery and Kristen Van Allen in math, 8th grade math. They looked at how to make data more creative and more interesting with an idea of design and to tell a story. So Matthew has his to show you in 14 seconds, and then after that, Kristen will show you what she did with her data.
Okay, I'm Matt Emery, and as I just feel free to ask any questions as we go along. So I did the top 10 artists based on how many purchases on iTunes they had, and I did how many albums, singles, and CDs they sold and totaled that up all together. And so I found how many albums and all that they had. For example, Rihanna had like 30, and then I made that into percent, and this is the amount of percent that she had. It was interesting as I was going along. Rihanna was #1, but she hadn't sold as much as Eminem, who has like a huge chunk. And and that was because Eminem is like 41 years old, and he's been performing since he was like 13 or 12, I don't know. And so he has like a million CDs and songs and singles. I then, once I found all my data, I then copied and pasted a guitar, and I found the album covers of each artist, and I put them in the shape of the guitar, because we were trying to be creative instead of having just, drawing a dot, saying Rihanna has 13%, instead make it creative and put in, well, Rihanna has 13 album covers. That's really it. Any questions?
That's awesome. I love your creative display.
Thank you.
Who's your favorite among those 10 artists?
I don't know. I downloaded a lot of songs after I did that.
You have to change
How much
the
did that
pictures.
I had a lot of iTunes money from Christmas.
Nice job.
Thank you. Nice job.
Hi, I'm Kristen Van Allen, and my data project is different than Matt's. Matt's is more creative, and mine is more with numbers and graphs. So what my data project is I took different social medias like Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, MySpace, and I tracked the year they were made and the number of millions they had over the years, and then, as you'll see later, the size of the dots that are in the graph is the percent of the U.S. population that is using the social media.
So Kristen,
Oh,
explain what the axes have, and then I'll did it myself.
Yeah, it's
I can fix it for you. Was this number?
Yeah. That one's fine.
And you have all these checked?
Yeah.
No trails and percent?
Yeah. Okay.
So go ahead and explain what you did there.
So on the bottom is the time, and I did a motion graph, so over time the bubbles will move up or down depending on the social media. And the size of the bubble, as you can see, this is, I think, 54% U.S. population is on Facebook, so that's why the size of the dot is really big. But as you'll see from something like Tumblr, the size of the dot is very small because the amount of the U.S. population that is using Tumblr is a lot smaller.
Right.
Very cool.
Very good.
Any questions?
Nice job.
Yeah, what is Tumblr and Instagram?
MySpace.
So the next thing we have is do you want me to try?
Change it.
Okay. So Jacob is going to show you how we use Moodle in math and science.
Hi, Jacob, and this is Moodle. It's something we use quite often. It's basically just all sorts of stuff. You can tell I didn't plan this. It's just you can create a page, not like a page like your own page. Like the teachers, they make a page, and it's in this. I don't know where.
How about I'll do that
everything is. You can see the right there thing. Okay, and they have all sorts of different things on them for things that we're doing in the classroom. Say like right here's videos, and in science there's genetic games and there's like games about genetics and other sorts of things like that, like links to websites. these are all the videos. We're supposed to watch 1 or 2 of them before each. We're assigned to watch some of them sometimes. That's what I meant to say.
Do you want to do the dragons?
Yeah. And then this is Fleming. Life science page, and see, it has all of these things on it. All of these boxes, and kind of nervous. Each one does something else. It does something. It contains something in it. You go to it, and I don't know if you saw, there's a big list of things. I don't know. It'll load. This is the dragon making game things.
So this is something Mrs. Legg would have put up for you to try to play?
Something that we have to do in class. There are a bunch of other ones, and this is dead. There's a lot of other things that we have to do or use. Google tool. Okay, genotype and phenotype, that being physical and genes. Welcome to the dragons thing.
I'm just
fill
going through this, yeah.
Fill it. It explains about how this works in the chromosomes and everything.
And the traits.
And the traits, yeah. See, we have 2 dragons. You can change it around and stuff, so just, that's horns, that's a dominant trait, that's wings, that is also a dominant trait. That is color, it's controlled by 6 different genes, and that's fire. It's a recessive gene, so they both have to be lowercase. I said that wrong, didn't I? And then you can do the female, but that really doesn't matter. Except for the fire, the female doesn't have 2 X chromosomes, so it's one or the other. And then you have to answer all these questions. Which of these genotypes result in the dragon with horns? It's HH, uppercase because it's...
Once you get through all this, what do you
Once you get through all this, there's a thing where you have to match the dragon with as few changes to traits as possible, and that's pretty much it. And
I don't remember these answers,
I don't
but I'm
either.
trying to go through quickly.
how many it's 6.
Just click random.
No, it's not that one.
It's that one.
Yeah, it's that one.
Yes.
Fire, yeah. Okay, then there's this, finally. You break open the egg with your mouse, and the new dragon is highlighted and the chromosomes shown. You have to match them. So for this instance, it would be, you'd have to get rid of the fire, get rid of the back legs, you can't get rid of the front legs. That's inhumane for some reason. Oh no, you have to add them. Oops, we did this backwards.
Get rid of the
Change,
horns.
yeah, get rid of the horns, and change the color. That's just confusing. Like, I think it's A and then like C, and that's it. And this goes on for quite a while.
And
Wow.
ideally, you want to make the changes in 5 changes in 5 clicks,
And then
and it took us 8 clicks. So
yes.
Still less than what it taken me.
And now Emily is going to show us how we've been using ePortfolios for our students to track their learning.
Hi, I'm Emily. This is my ePortfolio. We started using them at the beginning of the year. And it's just really something that holds like not really all your grades, but like it shows evidence of how you're doing in class. So this is the home page, and that's our student skills rubric. And at the end of each trimester, you like self-assess yourself on how you think you're doing in class. So you grade yourself on your completed homework, how on task you are, and if you're a positive member in your classroom. That's what I graded myself. And the pink is the first progress report, and the purple is the second. And we did that at the report card actually. And so then up here is all the subjects. So
Where do you want to go first?
language arts back. This is my language arts page, and this is our latest free write that we did, and I really like free writes. And so up top is our rubric, and I chose this piece as my evidence because I really liked how I wrote it and how we did goals, and I liked how I stuck with my goal throughout the whole thing. And if you go down there, there's more evidence too. Maybe that's just it.
Oh, sorry, I'm going down the wrong thing.
And so that's one of my constructor responses that we did. And that was one of our kneecap practice sheets that we worked on for kneecaps. And then this is my standards tracker. It's like my report card pretty much.
What other one do you want to show?
This is my math one. And this is cartoon globe that we worked on before vacation. And we just had to scale a picture pretty much, and you had to redraw it. And that's my rubric. And
Do you want to show another, or is that good? You can do it. Okay.
any questions?
So your rubrics, how you figured out what size you're to scale your box, your
Well,
squares.
for this, we got a picture that had to do with monsters and aliens, and then we chose how much we wanted to scale it up by according to the size of the picture and the paper that we got. So most I think scaled it up by 2 maybe. So the picture that we got was normally 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter square graph. Then we scaled it up. But I scaled mine 4, I think I scaled it.
That's good. Cool. Cool. Thank you.
Nice job.
Not really, they
You
did a
did?
great job.
You did a great job.
So it's sort of a collection of the ways that people are using technology throughout the building. Moodle especially, I think, has become really expanded across teams and content areas. Students are using Moodle to practice, to find out more information. There's some folks that are starting to experiment with what we call a flipped classroom, which is what Jake was talking about, where a teacher might assign a video or an example of a lesson. The homework is to go home and watch it, so that they're getting the background knowledge, and then when they come into class the next day, they're working on the classwork and the homework in class with the support of the teacher, rather than struggling with it at home. And that's the concept of a flipped classroom. And we're learning a lot about this because, as I had put in a previous principals report, that there were 27 faculty members that chose to take part in Hector Tamayo's professional development opportunity, which allowed us to have a mini, and everybody has a project that they're working on throughout the school year, and it has to do with how we're integrating technology into the classroom or into the building. So we'll have some more probably examples of that as time goes on, but wanted to assure you that people are using the technology that's in this building. I had folks just do a real quick spreadsheet of what exactly are you using, and it was highly populated with everything from Gmail to Moodle to the electronic portfolio, which is something that we'll talk a little bit more about as we probably move forward over the next few years. If we have mini computers 6th grade through 8th grade, the idea of being able to keep a mini portfolio, ePortfolio, throughout the time at ADL would be very doable. And then that would be something we can bring right to the high school. Then students will be able to keep that work and build upon it as they go through their high school years. So the center of this report was all about the technology. I don't know if you have just some general questions, and there certainly are plenty of folks in the audience here that are sitting here right now that use technology in their classrooms as well.
Is there a way to tell if the kids watch those videos at home too?
I don't know if you must know whether or not they can do the work when they come in.
Besides
I
the
usually
obvious.
use them in class. They're really short, so they put headphones on or the earbuds, they watch them, and then they can stop and rewatch, or they can move on, and then we can do other things. And then if they're studying for a test, they can go back and look at them at home. I don't know if there's a way to check to see how many hits a Moodle site. Mr. Tamayo, can they check how many hits are on a Moodle site?
You can see when they have you on.
Yeah, you can see when they've been on, but you can't see exactly what they've been doing unless they're taking a quiz that you assign or something.
Dick? Sorry to skip over you and read the letter.
All right.
That's great, thank you. Thank you for that presentation. So now we're doing the Vermont School Improvement Report.
Thank you.
So, as you know, we have 3 schools in the SU that were identified to be on year 1 school improvement, according to the state of Vermont and the National Federation of the DOE. So the steps changed a little bit from in the past. In the past, generally what happened when you were on a school improvement plan year 1, you basically looked at what you were doing, you did a self-assessment, and then you made some adjustments to what you were doing and tried to collect some data on what you wanted to do next. Instead, this past year, the Vermont DOE decided they wanted us to use the Green Mountain STAR program, which is a much more comprehensive program. It's really, in the past, was what you did when you were on year 1 corrective action. So we sort of bypassed some of those steps, and normally you have some time to do some other things before you get to this pretty intense workload. But if you go into Green Mountain STAR, which is a huge computer program, there are actually 23, pretty sure it's 23 standards or indicators that they require people to go through and self-assess and then write plans around. That's when you were in corrective action, that's what you had to do. Fortunately, because we were just year 1 school improvement, we only had to do 10. So in this packet, you will find a list of the 10 indicators that all 3 of our schools, the high school, Fleming, and ADL, all had to look at all 10 of those indicators and do a self-assessment, and they had to decide, according to the indicators that are here, do we have full implementation or don't we? And if you did have full implementation, you had to list the ways that you had fully implemented whatever that core indicator was. And if you didn't, then you needed to write some action steps and a plan that would address those indicators. And it was interesting that all 3 schools had their own groups and committees that met. They did the self-assessment, and we all identified the same 3 indicators that we felt we were not fully implemented, and the other 7 that we felt that we had implemented in place and that we were ready to go. So the next step was to meet and then write an action step for all of the indicators where we did not meet implementation, that all get fed into the computer system, this Green Mountain STAR computer system. And then the next step was to send it to central office, and Mike and Judy and Amy and Aaron took a look at it to see what they thought. Looked okay there. Then the next step was to have a peer review. So Tuttle Middle School was also identified in year 1 school improvement. So we swapped plans, read each other's, gave some feedback, And then we went ahead and put it back into the computer, any tweaks we wanted to make, and sent it off into the state to see whether or not it would be approved, and ours was approved. So this is now our Year 1 school improvement plan. So you'll see a very similar document for Essex High School and also for Fleming. It should look a lot like this one, the same format. So just, not going to spend a lot of time on the ones that were fully implemented, but I just wanted to highlight some of the places where we did feel like we were not fully implemented. And by the way, one of the things that made this self-assessment really difficult was because you couldn't be partially implemented, which made it very difficult because there were a lot of things that we do already that we know are the right things to be doing and are starting to show some progress in closing the gap. Because as you know, for us at ADL, we were identified in math for our free and reduced students, for our students of poverty. So we knew some of the things that we were doing were having an impact, but because we couldn't say we were fully implemented, we had to say that we were not implemented. So the first one was the team structure, and as you know, at ADL, we've been spending a lot of time over the last several years getting into a team structure, so we felt we were pretty fully implemented there. The second indicator was about the principal providing leadership, being a multi-tiered support, and you can see all of the action steps that we had in place that we felt like we were fully implemented in that area. Page 4 is the first top where I highlighted the places where we were not fully implemented and started. So all teachers are guided by a document that aligns Common Core standards, curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And one of the reason that all 3 schools identified that as not being fully implemented because, as you know, we move into Common Core next year. So we aren't fully implemented. We're certainly fully implemented in the Vermont standards, in our power indicators and standards. But we know that this switch is coming up. This plan's really supposed to be for next year. So it made sense for us to say that we were not fully implemented in this particular place. So there's a lot of full supervisory union and district steps within this one. You won't see quite as many action steps that are specific to ADL because this is a curriculum move that we're making across the SU. The next indicator was standards aligned units of instruction, and even though our units may not necessarily be aligned to Common Core, we certainly have followed that practice of aligning our units of study to standards, and that will just switch from the Vermont standards and our power indicators and standards into the Common Core for next year. The use of data was a big one for us.
Page 6.
Page 6, yeah. Data management system is in place with necessary technology support to provide the school support team, teachers, and professional staff with timely information on each student. And this was a real priority score for us. If you notice at the top, we had to identify how much of a priority did we feel that particular standard was. And for ADL, we felt like this was a huge priority. We know we have to use data in a way that's going to help us identify exactly what it is we need to do as a school to move us forward, but also for individual students. And right now, we don't have a good system to do that. We have PowerSchool, which is a student information system, but it's very, very difficult to manipulate the data that's in that system to any kind of usable format for us. Almost all of the data that we want to be able to extract from PowerSchool, we have to ask somebody else to run the report for us. I can't sit down and run those reports by myself. I just don't know the format. I just don't know how to get to it. So one of the things that we would like to be able to approach as an SU is there an additional student information system that will help us collect data that we can actually use and pull apart however we need to be doing that, pre-K through technical center, because the other thing that we find is we want to be able to track our students going all the way through, and right now we can't. I can only access the students that are at ADL. So I can't really see how what I did last year or 2 years ago is having an impact at the high school. Right now I have to have Wendy Wright at the high school run all the report cards for me, and I literally go through by hand. So when I'm giving you data about how our students are doing, our ADL students are doing in algebra and geometry and algebra 2 and so on, I'm going through the report cards one by one, and then I'm counting it up and I'm figuring out the percentages that way. So we're really looking for...
It doesn't come out in the same format as the high school so that it can be combined somehow?
Well, for me to be able to find out whether or not they were ADL students, so to be able to ferret all that information out, not so easy. PowerSchool doesn't, it's just not easily accessible. And certainly not anything I can pull out myself. And in this day and age, we should be able to.
pull a report?
I have to call Wendy Wright, say, can you, or Mike Meyer, who's really the only one that knows Power School inside out. So again, you're going to see a lot of the action steps in this particular core standard or indicator has to do with us working together as an SU to figure out how to do that better.
Who are the teachers that are going to pilot the program for this? The language arts and math teacher? Have the students try?
Right. Well, right now Kathleen and who was just here, Kathleen Legg and John Pontius, Team Discovery, have been piloting that for a while, and a couple of the language arts folks have been using it, although not reporting it out that way. They certainly have been using it that way. Same. Oh, we see action. We still have the action steps about building the report card for 14-15 as well, and that'll be the bulk of our work next year, is building that standards-based report card. And then the third indicator again has to do with data, but just trying to figure out how can we really pull together, look at the data, and make some action plans that are both school-wide and individual so that we can address student needs as we are working through that particular data. 7th and 8th grade is looking for some kind of math screening tool. There's lots of good tools out there for assessing reading skills. There's not a lot of tools that are great out there for assessing where students are in their math skills. So we are looking for some kind of screening tool that we'd be able to use in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And actually, I think as a district too, right? That's something that we're looking at. So it would be consistent all the way up through. We can be looking at that benchmark data as it goes all the way up through. So I will, this and then the other ones that are professional development. We felt like we were addressing that standard, our instructional teams, and that we make team-based decisions, that we interact socially with our students. And those are the other core indicators. So these are for you to be able to take home, read it more carefully. I'm sure you'll have more questions after you have some time to go through that, but I just thought I didn't want to hand it to you without being able to give you an overview a little bit about where these indicators came from and why some of them say fully implemented and some of them say not implemented. And as I say, you'll see a lot of consistency and probably a lot of the same language as you go through the Fleming plan as well. And the Idaho High Schools doesn't look too different from ours either.
Thanks. Can we make sure we have copies for Michael and Marla?
Yes, I've got some extras over here.
Okay. So we'll look through those. Thank you. Does anybody have any? Really good. Yep. Let's move forward. All right, testing updates. Got Leaders at Work is still
Wrapped up the revision to the superintendent's evaluation process, and we stepped into an interesting project looking at new board member orientation and existing board member development. So the group is working now on looking at a doable and meaningful sequence of activities that can serve both new and veteran board members.
Let's see, we have coming up, so I don't necessarily have to do that one. Communication, have you been going to, I know Michael.
Yeah, I haven't gone in a few months.
Yeah.
It's Michael.
Michael's been going, but I
Yeah.
can just give you a brief update. We've finished our strategic communication plan. We're trying to organize a meeting in the next 10 days so that we can bring that plan forward to the SU board for approval. So we've completed our work to date and it's now ready for prime time and an opportunity for us to determine if it'll meet the supervisory union's needs as far as communication is concerned, and then begin a training plan around it.
Okay. Negotiations is still, we're still have a meeting tonight, actually.
That's right.
That's why you asked me when we were meeting tonight.
That's not why, but.
Oh, I see now. Okay.
And is there anything, that's it, right? Did I hit them all?
Policy committee?
Policy committee, but we're pulling up policies soon, right?
Okay. Yep.
So maybe that would be a good time to do that. Unless you have something.
Just policy has a meeting this Wednesday at 6, and we'll be working on wellness
Yeah.
and K1 or KK at this point of the visitors to schools, which will be going to the SU shortly.
School safety and security update.
Coming around are copies of a survey principals were wonderfully responsive to. Charlie, this follows your request this be on the agenda tonight, and that was to provide a current status of where schools find themselves with respect to safety and security interests. I'll just walk through the results and give you a flavor for it.
Great.
So each of the principals spoke for his or her school. So there were 4 respondents across the EJ district. Universally, principals reported that each school had a security camera looking out onto their main entrance. So that does exist. With the exception of the school's main entrance, all schools' perimeter doors are locked. That 3 of the 4 schools currently have the capability to immediately lock the front door, and the 4th school, that is a work order in process right now to make that adjustment. It just needs to be adjusted to get it working. There are a variety of emergency drills the principals are required to hold. Typically, Lori, those are monthly drills. And those could be clear the halls, they could be secure the building, they could be fire drills, they could be a variety of drills. And the principals mix and match those to give students and employees a good variety of practice with those various drills that they might need to exercise someday. All schools felt they had a very positive relationship with Essex Rescue. They felt the same about the fire department relationship, and as well as EPD, Essex Police Department as well. So good relationships result in really good conditions. 3 of the 4 principals felt that they were welcome to attend or to send a designee to the monthly Essex School Public Safety Committee meetings. You may recall that's a committee that's been in existence now about 15 years. There's been a lot of national attention on this particular committee. Started by Leo Nato back in the 90s, and my guess is this committee has probably met 150 times so far on a monthly basis over the past 15 years. And this is the group that is comprised of school personnel, including Essex Town, by the way, fire personnel, rescue personnel, police personnel, other interested citizens that join this group that help really inform the school's safety plans, that help practice tabletop activities, and really keep a vigilant interest, particularly on the school front with respect to school safety. So this is an ongoing committee. Some folks are surprised to learn it exists, but it's been a very vibrant committee, and the current chief, Brad LaRoe, is maintaining really good work with that in leading that group. Matter of fact, next meeting is tomorrow morning at the Essex Alliance Church, and we're grateful to them for hosting the group that meets there. Classroom doors, number 10, can be locked. The interest there is on the door side. Obviously, all classrooms have a door in the corridor, and we'd like those to be lockable, and the principals report that they are. Next question gets after whether or not during the regular day classroom doors are kept closed, which the Vermont Life Safety Codes speak to. It's meant to really be a fire management interest, and we find that 2 of the schools, it's better than the other 2 schools, and it's just a conversation point for us around that practice. You know, for a lot of schools, it's a circulation, ventilation interest in terms of airflow, and there are a variety of reasons why some doors are kept open. We do have blinds and blackout material existing for all classroom doors and windows, so that's good to know that those can be blacked out. 2 principals recognized they had multiple copper line telephones, and 2 didn't recognize they did. In fact, all 4 schools do. And these are lines that are independent of the computer system. Our telephones are voice over internet protocol systems, so tied into a master computer system. And in the event that went down, every school has at least a couple of lines. It's like a fax line or a red phone line that could function in the presence of a down computer system. So that does exist in all of our schools, and I was able to point out to a couple of principals where those phones were in their schools. Two of the schools felt that their emergency messaging systems, which could be public address, could be phones and so forth, are audible to all occupied locations. This is a real interest to us, and there is a test coming up early February with the phone system to be sure that the phone paging system can be used throughout the building and to check the viability of that system. So that, and we have some ongoing work orders around the public address system to get that modernized. It's a bit of an aged system in some of our schools and not as current as we'd like it to be. You have by policy a requirement that each school file with my office every fall, usually it's around October, a safety audit. It's a form that a team at the school takes literally a walk through the building, room by room, inside, outside, and details items that might need repair, systems that might need to be replaced. And that's really a helpful conversation in the fall to help inform the budgeting conversation. So it's what Grant and Bruce work with in terms of that information, and it's very helpful to us to have that sort of currency going on in all the schools once a year. Next question addresses how well principals
question?
feel. Absolutely.
Work order, is that a short-term, like this school year, or could that be a long-term fix also?
It can be either. It
Okay.
really depends on what
Okay.
the need is. If it's a bookcase that looks not to be secure and needs to be bolted to the wall, that would be a pretty darn quick fix right there. If it's a master macro system of something that might be needed at that school, that could take a while.
Right. We started missing the emergency, messaging system. It didn't sound like that's something, it's a work order. I was thinking it'd be done tomorrow, but then, look at the complexity of the problem, possibly. It's a long-term.
Yep. So
Okay.
the test is going on with our phone system,
Okay.
Either first or second week of February.
Okay, thank you.
16, principals felt that they were satisfied that the school's annual safety forms, as you're asking, David, do get addressed. School volunteers were required to pass a comprehensive criminal background check prior to service that exists all over the place. School offices maintain and contribute to the current database of volunteers. It's a macro database, and every school participates in that, and that is the practice. Schools do require visitors to wear school-issued identification. Principals felt that their employees felt comfortable in questioning visitors who were lacking visitor identification, and just as an interest school-wide or in school safety that they will do that. School visitors are required to register their arrival and departure, universally the case. Employees are required to wear school-issued identification. The answer is yes. Again, my faculty, staff, and students practice a variety of drills. The answer is yes at all your schools. School has working protocols for the accurate and timely reporting during an event or drill, and principals felt that those practices were in place. My school posts the district's anonymous tip line phone and number. Two of the schools said they had those posters up, two don't, so we're going to make sure that those come to you from Bill Aware's office and are available at all 4 schools. My office maintains current emergency resources, which include really the center of the universe, if you will, and that is the school's safety guide and safety plan. Principals have an internal list of emergency phone numbers. There are floor plans and maps for each of our schools that are very detailed for use by fire, police, and rescue. Every school has its own unique evacuation plan. Every school has its own relocation protocols. So all 4 principals reported that they're certainly have ready access to those materials. Principals felt that their key employees were aware of and practiced in their responsibilities around their school safety plan. As you can imagine, there are a lot of jobs for a lot of people in the event of an emergency or during a drill, and that folks are well versed in what it is they have to do. Principals felt across the district that they had processes in place for mental health referrals and responses. Central office was felt to be responsive to the 4 schools' needs in the event of safety security events. All 4 principals felt their school safety plan was well-defined, it was adequate, and was practiced. And then there's some open-ended questions, 31, 32, 33 through 36, and if you turn the page, you can get to see what those responses were. One question, number 30, about whether the school safety plan is well-defined, adequate, and practiced, and you see a response there. All 4 principals commented about their opinion about the need for a buzz-in system, which could be a key swipe type system, so the principals had some thoughts about that. Question 32 is my general opinion about adding dedicated security staff at the school's entrances. and there were some mixed opinion about that. Question 33, general opinion about volunteer or staffed armed personnel at my school. There was really no difference of opinion there. That was universal across all 4 principals that was not a place they felt the need for their schools to go to. Some different thoughts on question 34 about principals' opinions about the need for an architectural review of their school's entrance and layout. Appreciate that all of our schools are really, while wonderfully maintained, dated architecturally. You see enhancements such as the room we're in now, the library, which has been modernized. But in terms of the school's general layouts, they date back decades upon decades. And the average school, I think we found out in one study of your district, is 50, pushing 60 years old across the Essex Junction School District. So that was a time and date and place in which different thoughts about school design were in place than today. You see some rather different thoughts among architects today for brand new buildings, be they government buildings, or be they school buildings, and so forth. So you've got principals' thoughts about whether an architectural review would make some sense. You've got some difference of opinion among your principals about their having immediate hands-on access to the Alert Now system. Right now, the Alert Now system is managed through my office within the Essex Junction District, and you see some different thoughts among principals there. And then you see some general thoughts, other thoughts principals are having about school safety and security. So you get a flavor for things in the district. I think that while things are never perfect, I think that we are in a pretty good place, frankly, around our safety and security interests. I know tomorrow morning at the monthly Public Safety Committee meeting, there will be a conversation about whether or not that committee will choose to host a public dialogue in the next month or so about community safety generally, but schools certainly being a part of that conversation. So I'll be looking forward to attending that meeting tomorrow and contributing to that conversation, and frankly be encouraging that happen, and we'll be sure to announce it.
I do have a question about that. It seems like a great committee, and I'm just wondering if there was a reason why one of the principals does not feel welcome to attend.
I don't know. I need to find out the answer to that.
I have a feeling it's not so much welcome as maybe feeling like they don't have somebody that could be in the building
Okay.
if they weren't there.
Capacity
I think that's always the rub, especially if you're the only administrator.
Or it says or send a designee, so maybe there's just no one there. Okay. Okay, and then as far as the phone lines, the copper lines, now that you've shown them where they are, they know how to work them, and that's all. Okay. Great.
I think that my general opinion about volunteer staffed armed personnel at my school is definitely not. That's when I retire.
Yeah, pretty strong sentiment there.
Prefer not to have, not support.
That's really good information.
That is good information.
We appreciate the principal's support on short notice and getting us
Now, are
those
those
answers.
meetings, public meetings at the?
Yeah, they are.
They are.
Yep. Thank you. 9 o'clock tomorrow. Usually go a couple of hours. Brad LaRose at the chair. And school participation from CCSU on average, it's well staffed. I'll bet we send.
Almost always. I mean, I started attending those back when I was an EP at the high school, so.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll bet we've routinely got 8 to 10 people from CCSU at those meetings. Yeah, we're committed to it.
Good to know.
So that would be good for the parents to know, I think, as well, to hear things like that, because I don't think a lot of people know it's out there.
Mm-hmm.
Good suggestion, thanks.
You good?
Good.
All right.
Thanks,
I'm gonna-
Shelley.
Thank you. That's a great report. The rec governance issue, I'm going to table because I think that with 2 board members not here, I think it's really important for everybody to be involved with every step of this, wherever we go with it. If it's one meeting and we vote no, or if it's 20, I think that every voice at the table needs to be there for the question and answers and voice to be heard. So we're going to table that for our next public meeting. And go straight to policy visitors to schools.
Jen, do you want to cover this one?
I can. I actually missed the last meeting, but it looks like, Dave, you were there, right?
Yes, that was.
I've got an old version of it, and then it looks like they've really amped up the new version and made a lot of changes. I believe it's going to the
Yeah, we
SU
took pieces of,
in-
what was the other,
Parental
policy? Was it for the
visits.
state? So we kind of mishmashed the two together and felt,
Yeah, I think from what I saw, there's a lot of, the additions are the implementation of it, more speaking to parental visits, and how you need to request to be there and where you can be in the building and what, those sort of things. They were really specific about when and how you should be at a school. So I think they made a lot of great changes, and visits by community members as well, and non-CCSU students, so they made a great addition.
And do principals and have a chance to look at this before it's changed? Is that something, is it just?
Well, we read them in the org notes, and we get sent the org notes.
And so if you have a comment, you would comment? Okay.
I think you've
Just
had
making
some
sure.
principals attend those meetings, student committee meetings.
Yep.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? It sort of brings up in the policy meeting, but that wasn't the place, but besides, how a visitor gets access, the frequency with the visitor comes. Is there any guidelines? Just, you can have somebody showing up every day, multiple times a day, and not just someone to visit, but take that a step further, a volunteer. I mean, do we have any limits on how much time a volunteer can spend in a classroom, especially when they might not be, they're not a certified teacher? If somebody's in the classroom an hour or two a day, that's a significant presence in, the education of a child. So I don't know, do we have any policy or guidelines on?
Do you want to cover it, Judy?
I was going to say, it's at the principal's discretion.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, principal knows the volunteer and
Right.
the purpose of the visit and approves all of it. And if it's problematic, the principal manages it. So it's really at the discretion of the principal.
And I think the things that people volunteer for are, there's reading, there's
Right.
writing, there's the Four Winds program. Everything's, usually an hour or less, 45 minutes, so I don't think it exceeds that too much.
Certainly your volunteers policy speaks to the foundations of volunteerism in schools being in service to the school. And the reference within this policy about principals having that discretion and managing those sort of visits, I think they become the arbiters of to what extent, the frequency is continuing to serve the school's interest, or at what point it might become a problem. If it's becoming a distraction, or if, their particular child or other children are being distracted by the volunteer's presence, that's when a principal would step in and modulate that frequency of visitation. But principals do have, I think, wide berth in terms of situationally managing those situations.
Because we have to do all of those criminal checks when somebody's volunteering.
Right.
I know exactly who's in my building and
Right.
when, of course, I also see them signing in and out,
Right.
so that I have some idea of how much time they're spending.
Yeah, I was just curious also.
No, it's
I was
a good
thinking like, someone's in the classroom 2 hours a day, it's like, wow, that's my, student's co-teacher. It's like, where was she educated? Where is she certified? It's like, I mean, I volunteer, I'm like, I wouldn't want me to 8 hours a day. I say that jokingly, but seriously, I'm not, I wasn't trained to be a teacher. I volunteer my time, but I'm not certified to be a teacher, so I like to think that, someone more qualified than myself is there, teaching my child. Okay.
And this is just first reading, right? I don't have my
Coming up
page,
to first
but yeah.
reading in January, yes.
Okay.
Yep, exactly.
All right, so on to the consent agenda, which would be to approve the warrants, approve the meeting minutes from November 5th, November 29th, December 13th, the fiscal year 14 announced tuition, and approve the recommendation for a professional appointment. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
And I'll second that.
Second by Dave. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda, motion passes 3-0.
And while missing on the warning, there is an addition to the agenda tonight, and that is a request to appoint an ESL teacher.
That was
is
on
the
there.
approved
That is on there.
recommendation for professional.
Oh, I'm looking at an old agenda, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My agenda wasn't current, sorry about that. So included then in the consent agenda were the warrants, meeting minutes, the announced tuition, and the teacher employment?
Mhm.
Great, thank you.
Is So next up, future agenda items. I believe our next meeting is a budget meeting. Is that?
Oh, yeah.
Preschool survey results.
Yes,
Yes.
Aaron's looking forward to the conversation with you.
The conversation regarding the rec department. Anything else anyone's got? That it? Post-meeting communication opportunities. I recommend you go to Empty Bowls because that's awesome. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, but you'll try. You don't have to RSVP to that. do you?
You'll just come.
That's great.
I just wanted to say something about the climate survey for ADL. I was looking that over, and I just thought some really positive things stood out, and it was really nice to see that the students felt, as far as their peer relationships go, that they're supported by each other academically and socially. They felt that the teachers listened to them and really wanted them to succeed, and that the teachers themselves felt that it was an engaged and connected school. So I just think that's such a positive thing to come from it. I know we can all work on things, but it's such a nice thing to focus on, and it's a great, foundation to have, and it lends to a nice learning place. So
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we've looked at the results together as a group, and actually today we designated the 5 areas, and we'll have a small action planning group within each of those 5 areas. So even the ones that look really good, like I said, there's always something that we could be doing more towards. So we're looking forward to working on that together. But thank you.
yeah.
And again, I really appreciate you hosting. I know that sometimes it might be inconvenient, but I think it's try to find some way to be more visible and to accessible. So we appreciate you giving us that.
And I think the teachers definitely appreciated having the opportunity to come in and see part of the board meeting at a time when they were not going to have to come back.
Yeah.
So
Good.
thank you for doing that.
Good. Good, Dave?
I'm good.
So it's 4:40, meeting's adjourned.